All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to our session titled Introduction to the NHSN 2022 Baseline Models and Standardized Infection Ratio Analysis Reports for Catheter-Associated Urinary Tract Infections. My name is Irene Khan, and I am the subject matter expert with the Acute Care Analytics team. I am joined today by my colleague Rob Wild, who serves as a statistician on our statistics team here at NHSN.
Good to be with you.
All right, so now that we have all that out of the way, let's move on to the main content. This webinar is designed to deepen your understanding of the SIR, or the Standardized Infection Ratio, and the 2022 rebaseline updates. Our goal is to help you effectively apply these concepts within your own healthcare facility. Before we begin, let's quickly review the prerequisites for this session. First, you should already have a working understanding of the SIR, including what it is, how it's used, and how it's calculated. You should also be familiar with the concept of a baseline in healthcare surveillance data. This is key to understanding how changes are evaluated. Lastly, you'll need basic knowledge of NHSN's rebaseline process, particularly how it can impact the interpretation of the SIR data over time. To help prepare for this session or reinforce what we cover, here are some recommended resources to review. We have linked all of them below. On April 11th, CMS published the fiscal year 2026 Medicare Hospital Inpatient Prospective Payment System and the Long-Term Care Hospital Prospective Payment System proposed rule. As a part of this rule, CMS provided notice of technical updates to the CDC's NHSN HAI chart abstracted measures, specifically using the new 2022 baseline. These updates apply to both the Hospital Acquired Condition Reduction Program and the Hospital Value-Based Purchasing Program. The HAI measures using this updated 2022 standard population will be publicly reported on the CMS Compare tool beginning in fall 2026, using 4 quarters of the calendar year 2025 data. If you have any questions about the CMS programs, here's how to get in touch or to find support depending on the type of facility. Presentation does not include any patient health information or personally identifiable information. Any data or facility names shown throughout our slides are fictitious and used strictly for illustrative purposes. They do not reflect any actual NHSN data, so no worries, your data is still safe. Now, regarding the currently available 2022 baseline SIRs in NHSN, the available measures include central line bloodstream infections, catheter-associated urinary tract infections, or CAUTI, the Clostridium difficile laboratory identified events, which are your CDIs, the methicillin-resistant Staphylococcus aureus bacteremia laboratory identified events, and the surgical site infection complex 30-day model for colon surgeries and abdominal hysterectomies. It's also important to note that this webinar focuses exclusively on CAUTI. And if you're interested in one of the other available 2022 baseline SIRs, there are separate training webinars dedicated to each of those. Right. Sorry, if you guys don't see, the slide is not moving over.
Is your mouse stuck?
No, it's moving. Yeah, it's paused.
There we go.
There you go. There we go. All right. Sorry about that, y'all. All right. So look additional 2022 baseline SIR and SUR reports are available, are planned for future release within NHSN. These updates are part of an ongoing rollout and not everything is available at once. And to help you stay informed, we recommend using the Rebaseline Progress Tracker linked here. And this tool provides a central location to monitor which reports have been released, which are under development, and kind of their expected timelines. And it's a great resource for planning internal updates or training and to stay aligned with the rollout schedule. All right, so let's begin by reviewing the key objectives for today's session. By the end of this training, you should be able to identify, locate, and use the key components and resources related to the CAUTI SIR using the 2022 baseline, including the updated risk adjustment factors, how to calculate the number of predicted events, where to find and interpret the 2022 baseline SIRs and data quality analysis reports, and how to access and apply the 2022 baseline training materials. We will also explain the importance of risk adjustment factors and how these data are captured and reported within NHSN. Finally, we'll take time to analyze the new CAUTI SIR reports and assess how various risk adjustment factors may affect your facility's reported CAUTI SIR. Here's what you can expect for today's session. Rob will start us off by introducing the new risk adjustment models for CAUTI. He will walk us through the statistical methods used to develop the updated model. He will also provide a practical example of showing you how to manually calculate the number of predicted events, which is the denominator of the SIR. After that, I will present an overview of the new CAUTI SIR reports. I will break down each risk factor included in the model, and I will show you how to locate and review those risk factors within NHSN reports for your own facility. Finally, we'll close out with a live Q&A session with all presenters. But please feel free to submit your questions at any time using that Q&A box. Our NHSN team is available and ready to respond to your questions throughout the presentation. I will now hand it over to Rob.
All right. Thank you, Irene. Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Wild. I'm from the NHSN statistics team. And before I begin, I just want to take a moment and recognize my co-presenter, Dr. Irene Khan. Irene recently earned her doctorate in public health, like just last week, in fact. So we're all incredibly proud of her at NHSN. So congratulations, Irene, on your amazing accomplishment. All right. Okay. So in this section of the webinar, I'll go into the specifics of the CAUTI SIR model. So before I jump into the details, I wanted to first take a look at the SIR formula, and we'll also discuss who uses it and why it's so important. And if you could advance the slide, please. Okay, so I think you guys are familiar. You've certainly seen it today, but we'll discuss the SIR again. The standardized infection ratio, or SIR, is a risk-adjusted summary measure for healthcare-associated infections, or HAIs. And it compares your hospital to the national benchmark. So it's calculated by dividing the number of observed HAI events, which is the actual number you reported to NHSN, by the predicted number of HAI events, which is calculated by us at NHSN using a predictive model. And if this number of observed HAI events is greater than the predicted number, the SIR will be greater than 1. And for example, if your facility reports 5 observed CAUTI events and our model predicts 3.2 events, your SIR would be 1.6. This indicates a higher rate of events compared to similar facilities. And conversely, if the number of observed HAI events is less than the predicted number, then the SIR will be less than 1. And you, I think, have noticed that NHSN reports also include p-values and 95% confidence intervals alongside the SIR value. These are just statistical tools, and they help you determine if your SIR value significantly differs from 1, which is the national benchmark for similar facilities. On this slide at the bottom, I've included 2 resources that provide more detailed information about how the SIR is calculated. Next slide, please. So who uses the SIR? The NHSN SIR provides crucial national benchmark information about the number of HAIs reported in your facility. It's utilized by a wide range of organizations, including CMS, state and local health departments, corporations, nonprofits, research groups, and very importantly, by you and your facility. And the SIR is essential for tracking progress over time. At the CDC, we use the SIR to monitor advancements in reducing HAIs at both national and state levels. And the SIR is featured in various publications and websites, such as those displayed on the right side of this slide. Next slide, please. All right, so before proceeding further, let's pause to address any anticipated burning questions you might have. So here's what we know about how the baseline models are used in CMS quality reporting programs. First, the type of risk adjustment model we use for catheter-associated UTI events remains consistent with those historically used by CMS. Second, CMS continues to utilize the 2015 baseline models for the inpatient prospective payment system quality reporting program. And third, in fall of 2026, the 2022 baseline SIRs for the 2025 calendar year will be publicly reported on the CMS Compare tool. And as you may have already noticed, the 2022 baseline models are now available in the NHSN application for facility and group users. You can start using these 2022 models right now for your internal analyses and to support your surveillance and prevention efforts. And we recommend that you familiarize yourself with SIR values calculated using the 2022 baseline models to see how your facility compares to the national data from 2022. For more details, please refer to our fact sheet, which is linked at the bottom of this slide, titled "Which Baseline Report Should I Use?" Next slide, please. All right, so here's the statistics stuff here. All right, so how did we get to the formula for calculating the predicted number of events, which is the denominator of the SIR? So this slide summarizes our methods for creating the models that generate this formula. First, we limited our data to a single baseline year, 2022, and we used reported data from all facilities applying specific exclusion criteria. We built our predictive models using a negative binomial regression model, and this type of regression is commonly used for count and rate data and was also employed in the 2015 baseline. We considered characteristics or factors reported to NHSN that significantly impact HAI incidence. And each characteristic, which here is also referred to as a covariate, a factor, or variable, each of these was evaluated separately with the reported HAI incidence to determine the optimal parameterization for that variable. The final model then is a linear combination of these optimal covariates. And if levels of any covariate in the final model were not statistically different from each other, they were combined. So for example, if there was no significant difference in HAI incidence between graduate and undergraduate teaching hospitals in a final model, these two types of facilities would be grouped together as one category. And finally, formal statistical diagnostics were conducted to ensure that the assumptions of our statistical techniques were appropriately met. Next slide, please. All right. So that's the end of this section on the details of the SIR, but I wanted to turn our attention to the results of the model fitting. And actually, before I get there, I want to mention how you can find further information on the risk adjustment models. We have numerous resources and documents available for you to explore and learn more about the SIR. And a great place to start is the 2022 NHSN rebaseline webpage, which is shown here. It provides detailed information, not just on CAUTI models, but also about our general modeling process and models for other HAIs as well. The updated SIR guide, listed as the second bullet point here, offers an in-depth explanation of our approach, the data used, and the models that were fitted. And additionally, please check out our NHSN Model Explorer and share this resource with your colleagues and leadership at your facility. It provides a simple way to view parameter estimates from our models, including the CAUTI 2022 SIR baseline models. Next slide, please. All right, pop quiz. Next slide, please. All right, let's see who is listening. What type of regression model is used to build the predictive models for calculating the predicted number of HAI events? Is it A, linear regression, B, logistic regression, C, negative binomial regression, or D, Poisson regression?
Yeah, hey Rob, it looks like we've got a lot of C's. Maybe
right.
a couple of A's mixed in there as well.
Okay, thank you, Catherine. All right, that was quick. You guys are listening. That's fantastic. Okay, so yes, the correct answer is C, negative binomial regression model. And again, these types of models are commonly used with count and rate data. And for further information, including seeing the model formula and additional information, which we'll cover, the SIR guide is definitely a great resource. So please refer to that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so now we'll get into the models themselves. I'll summarize the 4 CAUTI 2022 baseline models. And these include the acute care hospitals, or ACH model, which is shown here on the screen, the critical access hospitals model, or CAH model, the long-term acute care, or LTAC hospitals model, and the inpatient rehabilitation facilities, or IRF model. The ACH, acute care hospitals model, is the largest of all 4, and its parameter values are displayed on the right. This model contains 5 characteristics or factors, each with multiple levels. The parameter values are listed in the far right column, and also detailed parameter estimates and level information are also available on our website and in the SIR guide. Okay, so we'll use this fitted statistical risk adjustment model and its parameter values to determine SIR values over the next several slides. The model for acute care hospitals includes 5 factors, which are location type, total number of beds, medical school affiliation, average length of stay, and proportion of total beds that are ICU. Location type refers to the type of patient care unit, such as various types of service like medical critical care or surgical critical care. And the specific location type groups will be shown on the next slide, and full details of all service types included in each corresponding group can be found on our website as well. So the complete model, including the intercept and levels for each of these 5 factors, is shown on the right and can also be accessed through a model explorer as well. Next slide, please. All right, so on this slide are the critical care and step down location type groups. Specific location types within each group are shown. The similar location types based on similar risk were grouped together. There are 5 critical care location type groups and 1 step down group. Next slide, please. On this slide, we have the first set of ward location type groups. Specific location types within each group are shown. Similar location types based on similar risk were grouped together. And there are 7 ward location type groups in total, and this slide covers the first few. Next slide, please. All right, so continuing from the previous slide here, we have the remaining ward location type groups. And again, specific location types within each group are shown. These groups were formed by grouping similar location types based on similar risk. And this completes the list of the 7 ward location type groups. Next slide, please. All right, so continuing from the previous slides for this acute care hospitals model, let's look at how we can calculate and interpret the predicted number of events from an SIR model. So we're going to use an example, some made up values for this example acute care hospital. The top screenshot on the right shows how this hospital facility information might look in the NHSN application under the annual survey section. And the bottom right screenshot shows a line listing of 3 made up CAUTI events for this fictitious facility. And we'll also show you how to obtain a report like that one, or obtain a report for your facility later in the webinar. So on the left are these made up values corresponding to this acute care hospital facility for this example. These values are purely illustrative. And in this example, the facility has a medical surgical critical care unit, which corresponds to critical care group 4. The facility size is 209 beds. And the facility is indicated as a non-teaching hospital for its medical school affiliation. It has an average length of stay of 4.1 days. And the proportion of total beds that are ICU is 0.18. The total number of catheter days for this unit is 5,395. Next slide, please. All right, with these values in hand, we can determine which levels to use for each of the risk adjustment factors. So we'll start with the location type of medical surgical critical care, which is part of the critical care group 4 level, which was shown on previous slides. You can see that this level corresponds to a parameter value of 2.4744. And this is the contribution to the predicted number of events from the location variable. The next variable is total number of beds, which is 209. And this value fits into the second level for this factor, which is labeled 177 to 420 beds. And the corresponding parameter value for this level is 0.3347. And that will be the contribution to the predicted number of events for this factor. So we repeat this process for the rest of the factors. Next slide, please. So on this slide, I've highlighted the relevant levels and their corresponding parameter values for all 5 variables for this example facility. The non-relevant levels are grayed out, and the corresponding parameter values contribute to the total number of predicted events for this example facility. There are 2 factors for our example, that are at the reference level. They're non-teaching medical school affiliation and an average length of stay between 1 and 5.6 days. To calculate the predicted number of events, we'll use the equation for the predicted number of events with these values. Next slide, please. So the equation in the box on the right shows the contribution of each of the 5 factors as well as the intercept and the number of catheter days to the predicted number of events. So coefficients of 0 and 1 are shown in red and are used to activate or deactivate these contributions of the corresponding factors. Non-referent level contributions receive a coefficient of 1, while referent level contributions receive a coefficient of 0. And this effectively removes the referent level contributions from the equation. So more details, including a step-by-step breakdown of this calculation, is also provided in our SIR guide on the website with additional details. And I will read out the equation for this made-up facility. So we have negative 10.277 for the intercept, 2.4744 for the location type contribution, and 0.3347 for the total number of beds contribution. There is a 0 contribution for the non-teaching medical school affiliation, indicating this was a referent level, and 0 contribution for the average length of stay. Finally, there is a 0.0677 contribution for the greater than or equal to 0.141 level for the proportion of total beds that are ICU. So these values are summed together and we exponentiate the sum using the base of the natural logarithm, or this number e, and this expression exp with the square brackets on the left at the beginning of the equation represents this exponentiation. So that result then is multiplied by the number of catheter days. So the full expression results in a value of 3.294 for the predicted number of events for this example facility. All right, next slide, please. All right, so fortunately, you don't have to perform this calculation yourself, although I believe it's helpful, very helpful to have a working understanding of the approach like we just went through. And again, also refer you to the SIR guide. But in the coming slides, we'll explore how to generate a report like the one that's shown at the bottom of this slide, which displays the number of predicted events. So the standardized infection ratio, or SIR, is calculated by dividing that number of reported events by the number of predicted events. So in this case, we have 3 reported events and 3.294 predicted events. And that results in an SIR of 0.911. Since this value is lower than 1, it indicates that the fictitious facility had fewer catheter-associated urinary tract infections than expected when compared to the 2022 national baseline. Additionally, the report provides the p-value in the 95% confidence interval for the SIR. The confidence interval ranges from 0.232 to 2.478, and the p-value is 0.9421. So these statistics are indicating that the SIR for this made-up facility is not statistically significantly different from the 2022 national baseline. Next slide, please. All right, another pop quiz here. Okay, so where does the equation that I've showed on the previous 2 slides, where does that equation for the predicted number of events come from? The options are A, it is derived from historical data trends. B, it is based on expert opinions and clinical guidelines. C, it is derived directly from the negative binomial regression model. D, it is calculated using a simple average of past events.
All
All
right,
right.
hey, Rob.
C's.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it
Mhm.
looks like a lot of C's, maybe a couple of A's.
All right, all right.
Oh, there's a B mixed in there.
See what it is. All right, right, correct. The correct answer, it's directly from the negative binomial. And to see this, you can go to the SIR, or the SIR guide, and see how that model equation is converted into that predicted number of events. So I'll refer you further to that SIR guide. Okay, you guys know what you're doing. Okay, let's, all right, so next slide, please. So now let's examine the CAUTI SIR model for other settings. So as a reminder, the model was fitted separately for each facility type. So each may have a different set of optimal factors. And this slide presents the model for critical access hospitals. So in this model, there are two factors in addition to the intercept. These factors are the average length of stay and the proportion of total beds that are ICU. Next slide, please. This slide presents the model for long-term acute care hospitals. And in this model, there are two factors in addition to the intercept. These factors are average length of stay and the proportion of total beds that are ICU. Next slide, please. This slide presents the model for inpatient rehabilitation facilities, or IRFs. And in this model, there are five factors in addition to the intercept. And these factors are the proportion of admissions with other neurological conditions, facility type, proportion of admissions with stroke, proportion of admissions with non-traumatic spinal cord dysfunction, and proportion of admissions with brain dysfunction. That's the four models. And as a reminder, these parameter estimates are all available on our website. And of course, we'll share the links again later in the presentation. Next slide, please. All right, and finally, I want to highlight the statistics calculator that is available in the NHSN application. So this resource can be used to calculate the SIR, and there's 6 options available. These are all detailed in the guide linked at the bottom of the slide. So please be sure to check out this resource. And if you have any questions, we are here to support you. Please don't hesitate to reach out. And at this point, I'm going to hand the presentation over to my colleague, Irene, who will take us through generating reports in the application. Take it away, Irene.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. Thank you also for that kind shout out. Took me by surprise, but thank you for going over the detailed overview of how the SIR is calculated. So now I'll kind of transition over to how to locate these CAUTI SIR reports and utilize the reports. So there are some preliminary steps to take before you run your SIR reports. First, you must check your monthly reporting plan for all locations that are reporting CAUTI data to ensure that they're included appropriately in the calculation of your SIR for that location. Second, you have to verify or enter any UTI events for your numerator data. This includes confirming if events are eligible CAUTI events based on the NHSN defined surveillance criteria. The next step is to enter the denominator of catheter days for locations reporting UTI data. Once all CAUTI-related data is entered, any outstanding items such as missing summary data will populate in the alert screen. Resolve any outstanding alerts before proceeding with your analysis. And then the last step of this process is to generate a data set to incorporate all these changes that you have made. And this ensures that your analysis reports will include the most up-to-date data points. So, as mentioned again, the most important thing is to generate your data sets so your analysis reports have the most current information. It incorporates all the changes that you have made to your monthly reporting plan, any events that you've entered, all your summary data that you've entered. And this helps to ensure that your analysis reports are all correctly structured. The analysis tree view has been updated to reflect the 2022 baseline changes. You will now see a folder labeled Baseline Step 3 under the HAI Risk Adjustment Measures Report section. This addition organizes the 2022 baseline report separately from the previous baseline, which helps kind of streamline the navigation and to avoid confusion when comparing data across timeframes. If you're specifically working on CAUTI data, you'll find the new CAUTI SIR, the 2022 baseline, reports within the dedicated CAUTI subfolder. This is where all updated CAUTI risk-adjusted reports are housed. Users will continue to have the same flexibility when working with the 2022 baseline SIR reports as they do with the current reports in NHSN. That means no changes to how you modify your reports. Specifically, users can modify the report title, the output format, allowing for a variety of presentation-ready outputs. You'll also be able to adjust your time period to focus on specific quarters or months and custom ranges depending on your reporting needs. Filters can be applied to narrow down the data set, whether you're looking at a specific location or other relevant parameters. And lastly, the display options remain customizable, so you can choose how to group the data months, quarters, or cumulative time periods or years. And for more detailed information on how to modify your NHSN report, you can always access our quick reference guides. One is linked here below. All right, so now that we've kind of covered the foundational information, let's take a closer look at the standardized infection ratio report, specifically for acute care hospitals. So as you begin working with the new CAUTI SIR reports, there are a few important fundamentals to understand about how these reports are calculated and used. First, the CAUTI SIR is calculated based on three key components: specific location, the CDC location code or LOC-CDC, and the location type. This ensures that the SIR is both accurate and meaningful for comparison across the different settings. One key change to be aware of is that inpatient rehabilitation facility or IRF units that are part of a hospital will now receive a separate SIR. This is a shift from the previous reporting where IRF units may have been included in the broader facility level data. Also keep in mind that the new SIR reports under the 2022 baseline folder will only generate for data from 2022 and onward. They are not compatible with pre-2022 data because of the changes in the baseline model and the risk adjustments. You'll also notice that footnotes in these reports have been updated. They now reflect changes specific to this new 2022 baseline model, including updated definitions, calculations, and any model limitations or exclusions. And then for in-depth guidance, the NHSN has published a detailed document titled Guide to the 2022 Baseline SIR. You can access it on the link on this slide. And I highly, highly recommend reviewing this guide as it answers many of the frequently asked questions about the new baseline approach, and it's complete with details on the risk factors used in the final risk adjustment model. Let's walk through a few more points that are important when working with the new CAUTI SIR reports under this baseline. First, let's talk about report cadence. By default, the CAUTI SIR reports are generated at the quarterly level. However, users still have the flexibility to generate monthly, yearly, and even cumulative SIRs based on their specific data needs. It is also important to understand which facility types are included or excluded in the 2022 baseline calculations. Facilities that are enrolled as public health emergency facilities are excluded in the 2022 rebaseline SIR. Also, notably, psychiatric hospitals and inpatient psychiatric units are excluded from the SIR reports calculated using this 2022 baseline. This is a significant change from the 2015 baseline model. However, these facilities are still able to generate the SIRs using the 2015 baseline, as well as access line listings and rate tables if they need more detailed data. So just because we've introduced the 2022 baseline reports, that doesn't mean that we've replaced the 2015. They are still available for you to use. For acute care hospitals, the following facility types are included in the SIR reports under the 2022 baseline. So they include children's hospitals, general hospitals, military, oncology, ortho, surgical, VAs, women, and women and children's. And then this level of granularity ensures that the CAUTI SIR reports remain relevant and appropriately benchmarked based on facility characteristics and patient populations. You can find additional information on these changes under the implementation guide change log linked on this slide. The 2022 CAUTI Analysis Dataset, or ADS, includes records that are now available in the updated analytic reports. These updated files provide more complete and accurate data based on this new baseline period. You'll also notice that the naming convention for the files have changed. The prefix BS3 has been added to indicate that the data comes from the 2022 baseline. For example, for ICU rates and others and specialty care area locations, you'll see that prefix of BS3. Same for the NICU rates, you'll see that prefix of BS3. So these changes help to ensure clarity and consistency when using and referencing some of these updated analysis data sets. Right, so now that we've reviewed how to access the CAUTI SIR reports, let's take a closer look at the basic layout and components of the report output. First, at the top of the report, you'll see the title, which clearly indicates the baseline year being used. For example, it'll say something like, at the end, it'll say 2022 baseline in parentheses. This helps differentiate the reports using the new baseline and those using the 2015 model, which is especially important if you're comparing across time or pulling historical data. Next, you'll find a section showing the report filters and date range. This summarizes what criteria were selected when the report was generated. So anything from your modification page, such as the location, time period, or any of those filtering options. And it also will include that ADS name in there with that prefix of BS3, indicating that it's from the 2022 baseline. The heart of this report is the SIR table, which displays the SIR statistics along with facility level information. This includes observed and predicted infection counts, number of catheter days, the SIR value, the SIR p-value, and the confidence intervals. At the bottom, the footnotes section provides critical context. It outlines what data were included or excluded in the analysis, and also notes when the data sets were last generated. This is particularly important for ensuring when you're working with the most up-to-date data and the results are interpreted accurately. Each of these components contributes to the overall clarity and the transparency and usefulness of this report, whether you're using it internally or any sort of external reporting. So as we transition to start using the 2022 baseline for CAUTI SIR reports, it's helpful to know what's staying the same and what's different from the 2015 baseline reports. First, the display and structure of the first 4 tables in the SIR report remain unchanged from the 2015 baseline version. Here's a quick rundown of what those tables include. So Table 1 provides the overall facility, the SIR stratified by the time period. Table 2 breaks the data down by location type, your facility ID, and also by time period. Table 3 shows the data stratified by the loc CDC code, the CDC location code, and your facility ID across time. And then Table 4 offers the most granular view, which is by specific location and facility ID with the time period stratification applied as well. Where we do see a change is in the last table, or Table 5, which is now titled CAUTI Data Not Included in the SIR. This table is different from what we saw in the 2015 baseline version. The purpose of Table 5 is to provide transparency about why certain records were excluded from the SIR calculation. So now it will list any records missing risk factor data that are essential for calculating the predicted number of infections. It will include locations that meet the local CDC restrictions and not eligible for inclusion under the 2022 model. And finally, records with missing device dates or those with unresolved alerts that prevent them from being used in the SIR calculation. This level of detail really helps facilities better understand gaps in their data and take corrective action if needed. So to understand how the SIR is calculated, it's important to first understand the core components that go into the equation that Rob had shared earlier. There are 3 required data elements that drive this calculation. First is the CAU count, which represents an observed number of CAUTI events. This is the actual count of observed infections that occurred during that reporting period. Second is your NUM-PRED, or the number of CAUTI events predicted. This is generated through that NHSN risk adjustment model based on several variables such as the patient population, the location type, and the other known risk factors. Third, we have the NUM-U-cath days, which is the number of urinary catheter days. This reflects the total number of days patients had a urinary catheter in place across all relevant units or locations. All 3 of these variables are required to calculate the SIR. Without any one of them, the report either excludes the data or flags it as incomplete in the Table 5. In essence, the SIR is calculated by dividing the number of observed number of infections by the predicted number. And the catheter days are used to inform the prediction model and serve as the key denominator in understanding infection risk exposure. But that's not all. As we continue to look at the SIR statistics, let's talk about how the SIR value and let's talk about how to interpret the SIR value and the associated statistical outputs, such as the p-value and the confidence interval. First, when the SIR is less than 1, it means that fewer CAUTI events were observed than predicted based on the national data using the 2022 baseline. This is generally a good sign, suggesting that the facility had a lower rate of infection than predicted. Next, we look at the p-value, which tells us that the difference between observed and predicted infections is statistically significant. So if the p-value is greater than 0.05, we interpret that as a not statistically significant, meaning there is no strong evidence to suggest the observed rate is meaningfully different from what was predicted. And then lastly, we consider the confidence interval. If the confidence interval includes the value of 1, then the SIR is not statistically different from 1. This reinforces the idea that the observed infection rate is statistically similar to the predicted rate. Taken all together, these elements, the SIR value, the SIR p-value, and the SIR 95% confidence interval, provide the fuller picture of your facility's performance. So this is a screenshot showing you Table 5 in detail, which highlights data that were not included in the SIR calculation. Again, one of the main reasons records appear in this table is missing risk factor information. The SIR model relies on several key risk factors to accurately calculate the predicted number of infections. If any of those required data elements are missing for a record, that record cannot be used in that final SIR calculation. You can see in the screenshot here that Table 5 lists those records and flags why they were excluded. Again, common reasons include some of the missing risk factor data, missing survey level data, or missing device days, all of which prevent the model from calculating the number predicted. Paying attention to this table is important because it not only helps you ensure the integrity of your SIR calculation, but it also gives you a clear view of any data quality issues that may need to be addressed going forward. Facilities can use this table to troubleshoot reporting by ensuring that all required fields are complete at the time of submission. So in some cases, especially for smaller locations or shorter time frames, the number of predicted infections or NUMPRED may be less than 1. So when a number predicted is less than 1, the SIR, its p-value, and the 95% confidence interval will not be generated in the SIR table. And that's because the model doesn't have enough prediction to calculate meaningful statistics. One option to counteract this in this case is to expand your time period used for the report, such as running it across multiple quarters or even a full year. This can help meet the threshold of 1 predicted infection, making the SIR calculation available. And if that's not feasible or doesn't solve the issues, that's okay. Facilities can still use the CAUTI rates instead. That's why we have our rate reports. They can be especially used for tracking trends at the location level over time, even when the SIR data isn't available. So while a low number predicted value may limit the availability of your SIR statistics, there are still other valuable tools in the NHSN analytic reports that can help with infection surveillance and performance monitoring. And then to quickly summarize what was presented earlier by Rob, the number of predicted infections is generated using the national aggregate data on healthcare-associated infections, or HAIs, from the 2022 baseline. This prediction is adjusted for each facility using a set of variables that were found to be statistically significant predictors of infection during this baseline year. These include things like patient population characteristics, location type, and device use. The underlying model used by NHSN is the negative binomial regression model, which is appropriate for estimating infection counts, especially when working with summarized data at that location level. So in practical terms, the predicted number of infections is calculated by the number of catheter days by the exponent of the model's parameter estimate. This allows the model to account for the specific risk profile for each location while staying anchored to the national benchmarks. And then for those who want to dig deeper into the model structure or the variables used, I recommend viewing the NHSN guide to the 2022 SIR. In this slide, I am showing some key facility level risk factors that NHSN pulls from the most current facility annual survey, from your current annual survey, to help adjust the predicted number of infections in the CAUTI SIR model. What I'm showing you is for the acute care hospitals. First is the total number of beds in the facility, which helps reflect the facility's size and capacity. Next is whether the hospital has a medical school affiliation. Total patient days and total number of annual admissions are both used to calculate important exposure measures, including average length of stay. That's calculated by dividing the total patient days by total admissions, which is an indicator of how long patients typically remain in the facility. The total number of ICU beds is also important, as ICUs tend to have a higher risk patient population. So more invasive procedures, more device use. And finally, the model includes the proportion of ICU beds, which is calculated by dividing the number of ICU beds by the total number of beds in the facility. All these factors are used in the risk adjustment process to generate a more accurate prediction of how many infections a facility would be predicted to have based on its unique characteristics. On this slide, we're highlighting the specific hospital locations that are excluded from the 2022 acute care hospital CAUTI model. First, NICUs are excluded because they do not have in-plan, several NICU locations are excluded because they do not have in-plan CAUTI surveillance within NHSN. So this includes various levels of neonatal care units, your level 2s and 3s, and level 4s. Second, pediatric critical care units are excluded due to insufficient 2022 baseline data. So these include some the pediatric neurosurgical and respiratory critical care units. Third, our specific pediatric wards are also excluded for that same reason, insufficient baseline data, and these include pediatric ear, nose, and throat ward, pediatric behavioral health wards, adolescent behavioral health wards, and pediatric rehabilitation wards. You'll also notice some of these have a designation CMS IRF equals yes. That indicates that they were previously reported but lacked sufficient data for inclusion. And these exclusions were necessary to ensure that the model is built on robust and reliable data. And these units either lacked enough data or in case of the NICUs weren't included in the CAUTI surveillance plan. Some more inpatient location exclusions due to insufficient baseline data from 2022 include specialty care areas such as the pediatric dialysis specialty care area. Chronic care units are also excluded. These include inpatient hospice, Alzheimer's units, chronic behavioral and psych units, chronic rehabs, ventilator dependent units, and just chronic care units in general. Operating rooms are also another excluded group. This includes not only standard ORs, but also specialized surgical procedure areas like the cardiac cath suites, C-section rooms, and interventional radiology and post-anesthesia care units. Again, for these location level exclusions, because there was not enough 2022 baseline data to generate reliable SIR for these location types. And all these detailed information on those exclusions and changes in the exclusions can be found in the implementation guide change log, which is linked on this slide. So now I'm going to go over some data quality. So how do you ensure that the quality and accuracy of your SIR reports? So there are ways with using our analysis reports in NHSN. So to ensure the accuracy of your SIR numerator, which represents the number of observed CAUTI events, it is important to regularly validate the events entered into the application. One way to do this is by running the line listing of all CAUTI events report. This report gives you a detailed view of every CAUTI event that has been entered for your facility. You can find this report under the following folder path in the analysis tree. The purpose of reviewing this line list is to verify, again, that all your CAUTI events have been entered into the application, and they're properly recorded, and they are reflected in your analysis reports. This is a key step to maintaining data quality and consistency, especially before generating your SIR reports. By routinely checking this list, you can catch data entry errors, confirm that all events are accounted for, and ensure that what's in the system matches your facility records. And we also have detailed quick reference guides on how to run the event line list linked on this slide as well. All right, so the CAUTI event line listing includes a set of default variables as column headings. And these typically cover fields like patient ID, event date, location, the device association, and the which kind of gives you the comprehensive view of each recorded CAUTI event. You can also modify this report to add any other variables that would meet your reporting needs. So again, it's one of the most useful features is, it's fully customizable using that modify option. So you can add and remove variables based on what you need. So the default list can be updated. Just as we verify the SIR numerator using the CAUTI event line list, we also need to confirm the accuracy of the SIR denominator, which is based on the catheter days. To do this, we use the all summary data line listing, which provides a detailed breakdown of summary level data submitted by location and time period. There's also a quick reference guide on how to use the summary data line list linked here. The key column to look for here is num-d days, that last column outlined, which represents the number of device days, specifically in our case, urinary catheter days. By reviewing this line list, you can confirm that catheter days have been entered correctly and completely for each location and month included in your SIR report. Accurate catheter day counts are critical because they directly impact the number of predicted infections in the model. Any underreporting or gaps can significantly skew your SIR results. The rate table can also be used to identify both the numerator and the summary data at the same time. The report output generates a separate table for each location. In the table, the numerator for the rates referred to as the count is identified. It also summarizes the overall data for that location broken down by the month and year. Another important aspect of data quality involves the hospital survey data, which includes key facility level variables used in the SIR risk adjustment model. So parameters such as bed size, ICU capacity, admissions, and length of stay. To review this information, navigate to the facility level data folder under supplemental reports. From there, you will select the line listing report that corresponds to the correct survey year. For example, 2024, if you're working with the most current completed survey year. This report allows you to verify that your annual survey responses were entered accurately and the risk factors being pulled into the SIR model reflect your facility's true characteristics. It is a good practice to cross-check the survey data regularly, especially after completing the annual survey, to make sure that it aligns with what is being utilized in your analysis. I'll now briefly go over some of the new resources available for understanding the rebaseline. We encourage all users to explore the Education Analysis Resources webpage, which provides helpful guidance related to the 2022 rebaseline. There are 3 key tabs on this page that are especially useful. First, understanding the new models. This section breaks down how the updated risk adjustment models were developed and what changes to expect compared to previous versions. Second, using the new reports in HSN. Here you'll find tips on how to navigate and interpret the updated analysis report, analysis output options, including the rebaseline SIRs. Third, any education and training on the rebaseline. So this tab will include webinars, FAQs, and to help users transition to the new baseline and understand its impact. So please take time to review all 3 tabs because they are designed to support a smooth transition and improve your confidence with the updated analytic tools. If you're looking for more detailed guidance or need help navigating changes related to the 2022 baseline, I recommend reviewing the CAUTI SIR implementation guide and change log provided by NHSN. This guide clearly outlines inclusion and exclusion rules for the 2022 baseline model, helping you understand what data are factored into the SIR and why some records may be excluded. It also includes a helpful comparison of the differences in functionality between the 2022 and the 2015 baseline report. This is particularly useful if your facility is used to working with the 2015 reports and you want to better understand what's new or changed. Additionally, the document highlights minor but important changes that impact other CAUTI reports, such as updated names for analysis data sets and adjustments that were necessary due to the rebaseline process. Altogether, this guide is a great resource to support accurate reporting and ensure your team is aligned with the updated structure and logic behind the 2022 baseline. As many of you may be in roles where you are asked to explain NHSN changes to either colleagues, leadership, or external partners, it is helpful to have some clear, consistent messaging around the 2022 rebaseline. NHSN has developed a set of talking points designed specifically for this purpose. This can help you communicate what the rebaseline is, why it was necessary, and how it impacts infection reporting and interpretation in your facility. These talking points are a great resource whether you're preparing for a presentation, fielding questions from leadership, or coordinating with external stakeholders who also use NHSN data. They address common questions and offer simple, consistent language to help others understand the shift from the 2015 to the 2022 baseline, as well as the broader implications of surveillance and benchmarking. Links to these resources are included on the slide, so I encourage you to bookmark or download them for future use. The Model Explorer tool available through the NHSN website, which allows users to view the specific risk adjustment factors used in the calculation of the number of predicted CAUTI events. First, this tool gives transparency into what variables are used in the risk models, such as location type, the patient care level, and other relevant predictors used to calculate the number of predictive CAUTIs for a given location. The screenshot shows how these adjustment tables are listed by facility type, such as location settings. This is also very useful when you're interpreting your SIR because it helps you to understand what underlying differences may have been accounted for in the model. A direct link to the Model Explorer is provided at the bottom of the slide for reference or for those who want to explore it live in their browser. All the links and resources shared throughout this presentation has been consolidated into a list for you to easily access. So the next few slides will contain all the links that were included. So I recommend you look through them for context and, bookmark them as you need to. If you have any questions related to the NHSN rebaseline, here's how to reach out for help depending on your access. So after